Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Absolute Game of Nerds. Yes, you are seeing me solo today. JP had a work function that came up and he had to go to. So such is life. I'm flying solo, but I got another great guest for you today. We have Chris from Cheddar Comics. I met Chris way back when I first started collecting. If I remember correctly, Chris, I think I bought a Submariner 8 from you, which is a classic Thing and Submariner black battle cover.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, thanks for coming on. Happy to have you on and looking forward to getting to know you a little more here. So why don't you say hello? How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for having me. It's my first time on any podcast. I'm honored. I'm truly honored to be here. So thank you for
right on. We're happy to be here first. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should say, and just recently, JP bought an Action Comics 419, right? That's the
yeah,
perfect. Yeah, so it
was great.
Keeps coming. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, so we always start kind of the first question is the same for everyone. What is your origin story? And we want to go way back. If it started when you were a child, all that the original love. Where did it start? How did it start?
Back in the 1900s, it started. So I'm sure, like a lot of guests you have, there's kind of pockets, but
yep.
The first part, my dad actually owned 2 comic book stores on the West Coast. So I was born in Portland, Oregon, and he had 2 shops in the 80s. Half comics, half sports cards. So, I get to go in there and see all the comics, and probably at that, until I was like 5. So the toys, and was just kind of surrounded in the comic culture. My uncle would bring me home, the new Punisher van or whatever. And I got spoiled with all that stuff. And his stores actually got robbed. Yeah, it's terrible. He got hit by, if you want a lawn story, we can do that later, but he got hit by a cat burglar who hit his 2 stores and our house.
So they knew what they were hitting. They knew what they were coming after.
Yeah, it was like a professional cat burglar. And so after that, my parents were like, yeah, we should move, back home to the Midwest. So that was kind of it, and I kept up with the shows. I know you're a big X-Men fan, the X-Men animated series, and the action figures and stuff kind of kept it alive, but the comics fell to the wayside until I was about like 13. My dad and I were in a little rinky-dink vacation town in Wisconsin, and there was an antique store there, and there was a display case right when you walked in. Right in the case was the only comic there was a Showcase 22, first Hal Jordan.
Wow.
And for some reason, I was like really into it, and I didn't even like Green Lantern, and I didn't like old comics, and my dad noticed me taking a liking to it, and he was like, "Oh, are you interested in that book?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." I think it was like maybe like $300, which I think
which
now
is a steal today.
Yeah, today it'd be a steal, So he bought it for me, and that kind of started this little pocket of him and I collecting like silver and bronze for like 4 or 5 years. And with the deal he made me was that we'll collect all this stuff, and then we'll sell it all when you go to college, and we'll help pay for college. So I amassed this like incredible. He clearly had too much expendable income because his kids weren't in college yet, So we just picked up all these silver books, and I learned all my grading and how to look over books and what was key kind of during that period.
Wait, so did you actually sell these books when you went to college?
Every single one.
Oh, I was gonna say, man, can you imagine? I mean, what was it graded at Showcase 22?
It was probably like a VG,
Okay.
So I mean, dude, that collection, if we were smart, which I guess we weren't, we would have saved it 20 years, and then we didn't really make much, I don't think, after like 5 years waiting.
What were some of the other bangers in there?
Oh, dude, it was crazy. It was like, I had a Daredevil 1, I had a first Punisher, I had Kingpin, I had because of the Showcase 22, I was really into Green Lantern, so I had Showcase 22, 23, 24, and then Green Lantern 1 through 100. So it was like it was just a whole room of stuff. It was just crazy, when I think about it now. Now my PC is like 8 short boxes in the bottom of my closet, you know, and I'm like, oh, I got a $90 book. I'm so happy, you know.
So also, I want to take it back real quick. So
please.
your dad owned 2 half comic, half sports card shops.
Yep.
And what I find really cool about that is, you know, so you said the 80s, I grew up in the 90s, you know, we had a lot of overlap there. I was obviously born in the 80s, but most of my childhood I remember was in the 90s. But that kind of period of time, there were way more shops now. Like we still have some comic shops, but like back then, if you remember that, there were so many. I lived in a small town in Lakewood in Washington at the time. And in Lakewood alone, there was 3 or 4 sports card shops. 3 or 4 comic book shops and some combo ones. And oh, hold on. What is that coming? There's some. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I hear it. You got like it's like a TV or something.
Yeah, I think it's like. Oh, Alexa, stop. There's a dot right there, and I think my wife must have played something in the YouTube or the Bluetooth connection, brought it on. Anyways, what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
With all those shops, there were so many times that my parents and I, you know, I didn't think anything, and I love that we did this. They probably saved so much money in babysitting because there would be these times when like my mom would have to do all these errands, but in the vicinity of these errands would be one of these shops, and she would just leave my brother and I for a couple of hours and we would love it. Like this would be totally cool with us.
Yeah.
You know, 2 hours at the comic book shop, 2 hours at the card shop. And, you know, we were 7-year-old, 8-year-old kids. So we had no money to actually spend there. So like, I think it's funny how much like babysitting help my parents got from that thing. And then I just think about like now, like as an adult, like, man, those owners must have been really annoyed by us just like showing up, hanging out, and just like asking them to like look at these things that are in their faces and things like that.
Are you gonna buy anything?
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you have any money? Like, why are you?
Did your parents send you with a 20 at least?
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you buy a pack of cards? Maybe. Yeah. But,
are you gonna buy those Batman '89 cards? Or are you just gonna look at them? You know?
Yeah, but no, it was more just like, hey, can I see that Ken Griffey Jr. there? Like, what?
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm curious if your dad has any thoughts or experiences like that of just these like smelly kids just hanging out in his shop while he was trying to do business.
Yeah, I'm sure, because he used to have like a lot of you know, I don't remember the names of the players, but he would have like NBA players, you know, like in the shop, like doing signings, and those were like like, he said like his craziest days ever. You know, there'd be like lines out the door for. I don't remember.
Yeah, you know, that's another thing too. I don't know if it happens now. I don't hear about it, but you know, obviously it's a tangent from comics. But
yeah,
I'm a big sports fan, and my brother was too. And so, like, I remember numerous times it was like, "Oh, Gary Payton is signing at J.C. Penney," and so we went and we waited 3.5 hours in line to get Gary Payton to sign a card and a hat, right? And then Detlef Schrempf was at Hollywood Video and just random places. These guys would show up in our area, and we would go and we'd wait in line for 2-3 hours and get their autographs. Like, I'm curious if that happens now. I don't hear about it, but like that was definitely something that we did as kids.
I know, and they would get like big. I remember in Oregon, in Portland, my mom was like, we went to the mall because we were going to meet like the cast of Beverly or 90210. You know, they were at the mall. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I imagine did your dad have Clyde Drexler at all or anything in the shop?
Maybe, yeah. That sounds familiar, honestly, with one of the names he would used to say. He'd always brag about the big, you know, big sports players he would get, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, anyways, coming back to comics. So who would you say as a child were your favorite characters, teams? Who'd you collect? Like, let's kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so you know, when I was a little kid, it was definitely Captain America, and you know, Spider-Man, and then, but once, you know, probably once the X-Men show came out, you know, and you hit that like great Saturday morning cartoon Fox day with you know, Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff, it pretty much switched to Marvel at that point. And for the, you know, when I think about being a kid, it's like I remember some comics, and I remember my dad reading comics because he would bring home, you know, whatever was new that week, because you'd have to be up on what was coming out, you know, because you're going to get questions about it from the customers.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like really like, you know, the cartoons and then the video game. I know you're talking to Colossus Collector about it, but the big, you know, like
Konami arcade game.
Yeah, the big 8 joystick. It's on my wish list. I hope to have it before I'm in the grave. You know, the big video game stand would be cool.
Would your wife be okay with that being in the house?
Yeah, we don't need this. We don't need any of this. It'd go right there. You know. We don't need to eat this week.
Yeah.
Or this month, I guess.
But yeah, so go on. So then you kind of switched over to kind of the X-Men. I think, yeah, it's probably similar to a lot of us, right? We all kind of liked all
Yeah, you know, and I think about it too, because I was watching a bunch of your videos and I'm like, you know, it's kind of manufactured because of what's, you know, and I've met kids who grew up with, you know, and were born in maybe 2004, 2005. And it's like, to them, it's all about Iron Man, you know, because they grew up with Robert Downey. You know, for you and me and like guys our age, the X-Men media in the 90s is crazy. In like I think it's within 18 months, you get the animated series, you get the Jim Lee X-Men book, you get the video games. You know, it's like they just birthed it all at once.
Yeah, I always say too that the three, I mean, also outside of like Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe, I like that too, but like the three, I always feel like where it was the X-Men, the Batman, the animated series, and the Spider-Man show were probably the three biggest
golden age
cartoons of my childhood. And then like when JP and we had our first episode, we talked about oranges. Like we always talk, and everyone we talked to, because basically almost everyone that has come on is kind of essentially the same. We were 90s kids and now we're back in it hard. And it's like we all say does X-Men Jim Lee, X-Men 1 Jim Lee, and then the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man 1, like those were right there. Yeah, there you go. There's the cover right there. Yeah. Now, just since you have the shirt there, would you say that's the best of the 4 covers?
For me, it is. It's my favorite, you know.
Yeah.
And I love when people ask me my favorite X-Men, it's Magneto. So.
Oh, okay.
I gotta go with my man. Is, you know, it's the best cover ever, you know.
I think from an art perspective, I think that is definitely the clear, correct answer. Obviously, that's an opinion. But my favorite, I would say, is the one with Wolverine and Cyclops. I don't think anyone draws Wolverine better than Jim Lee, and I just think that the Wolverine on it is just so badass.
I was gonna try to be different, and I was gonna say that one. That's honestly like the best one too.
Yeah, I'm sure those are the two. I don't think anyone ever says like the Beast cover. The Beast and Colossus. I mean, maybe Ryan from Colossus Collector will say the Colossus one. And they're all really good.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, awesome. So
yeah,
you then, I assume, there was some break. You got back in. Did you have the same interest in the same characters, or has there been overlap? Are you into different things now?
Yeah, so you know, like when I had that teenage collection, and then you know, because the deal I had with my dad, I couldn't keep any of them, so I was pretty heartbroken about a couple of. I only wanted like 2, and he wouldn't break on the deal. So
what were the 2?
The 2 that I wanted to keep was the Showcase 22, because that kind of started everything. And then the other one that I wanted to keep was, I had an Amazing Spider-Man 14.
Oh, nice.
Him and I actually bought that on the floor at Comic-Con in like 2003. And we got it home or back to the hotel, and he flips it open and he was like, oh my God, he had no idea. And I was like, what is it? Stan Lee's signature on the first page.
Oh, wow.
And the dealer had no idea. You didn't sell it like that at all, you know. And so that was like one of my favorite books because the memory and everything, you know, the emotional attachment. He was, no, we're selling that. So through like college and stuff, you know, I took a dip and got interested in other stuff. I went to film school. I made movies for a couple of years. And I didn't really get that interested in it until I met my wife, and I are college sweethearts. And when I met her, you know, I just kind of mentioned like something about comics, and she was like, oh, really? Comics? I don't know anything about it. That's so cool. And I was like, oh, really? That's so cool.
Yeah. What girl says that?
I could tell you a lot about it. Yeah. You know, so it's really because of her that I got kind of reignited and reinterested in it. and she's just been so supportive the whole time of me collecting. It makes it a lot easier, you know, and it makes it a lot more fun when I get something in to have it shared with somebody. So I worked, we were in LA, and I worked at a comic book store for a couple of years. And I got a little bit more into collecting then. And then I had a collection again. I built up a little nice short box, and I had a Saga 1, and I had, you know, some X-Men keys, and then broke again, you know, had to sell them all. And then I got heartbroken again. And then another couple of years went by, and then it came back again. It's like a boomerang in my life.
Yeah.
You know, but the last like 10 years have been pretty rock solid, and just kind of adding little pieces here and there. The X-Men are my biggest part of my collection. I don't have, like I said, I don't have much. I've got about 8 short boxes in my closet. I keep it pretty tight, so I don't do too many like runs, except for like the Claremont, you know, and you know what I'm talking about, the Claremont run.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty much the only one. Otherwise, I go after keys or stuff, you know, from my childhood. Once I had my kid, I kind of reconnected with all that 90s stuff, kind of, you know, reconnecting with your childhood shtick. And
have you recollected either a Showcase 22 or ASM 14?
No. No, you got one? You send it to me.
I don't have. I'm not a huge Green Lantern person, and I have no personal connection. So Showcase 22, I wouldn't say is on my list. I mean, obviously, if I saw one, it was a great deal.
Sure, you see a garage sale for $1, you're not going to walk away.
Exactly, I'm not going to walk away. But like on the other hand, ASM 14 is definitely a book that I intend to have at some point in the future. Right?
That'd be great.
Definitely on the list. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Showcase I looked up. Maybe I got curious. You know, sometimes I'll get curious, like, what's that going for? And I saw like $3,000. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I would say $3,000. I mean, so that's probably like a lower grade one. Like you could see them definitely go get up there for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
So those ones, I'm just like, whatever, you know. I'm not chasing stuff I can't go after, you know, without breaking the bank. I gotta be thrifty sometimes.
Yeah. So then where are you collecting these days? Like, where are you going and finding what goes in those 8 short boxes? Where are you grabbing them from?
So, you know, a lot of my little scheme, I got a little scheme going with my comic shop.
Okay.
Do you know them, all the website, mycomicshop.com?
Yeah, I know of them. I've never used it or bought anything from it. I've heard of it. Absolutely. I've looked at it. I just have
I don't know. Maybe I don't want to tell anyone. Maybe I want to keep it to myself what I do, you know, but for years I've been I send them a box of like trade credit, and I store up like trade credit with them. And then I'll like, you know, you send a box of like stuff, you know, they're going to, I'm doing this on YouTube, but you know, you send them a box of stuff you don't care about, or stuff that they value more inside of their system. So they have their own, like, you go in there and you see what they'll buy, and they have it broken down by grade, yada, yada. And you tally it up and you send them a box. And a lot of time they'll nick all your grades because they're really strict, but which is good as a buyer. So then I'll turn all that trade credit into like a nice big fat key. So so like a few years ago, I sent them, you know, like 2 or 3 boxes, and I think it was like maybe $300, and I got an ASM 300, and they had it at an 8.5, and they're strict graders, which is great. And then last year, at Last Comics, I know you know him, he's my presser, and he pressed it and sent it in, and I got a 9.6 out of it.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of my keys that I've gotten in my collection have been from trade credit with them, which has been,
that's great. Because I have books that I want to trade, and it's like, okay, I'm going to use these when I see the book I want that I can trade for it. It's hard to work, especially like, you know, nowadays when things aren't booming as much in the comic market. I find it's a lot harder to make a trade. So that's good to know. So will they take both raw and graded books? Yeah,
definitely. And if it's like, I think if it hits a certain benchmark, like it's high, like a valuable book or a high grade, you can even do consignment with them. And have it sell on their platform. But yeah, the trade credit's great because I send them like boxes and boxes of stuff, or in my, you know, I've got an Etsy shop. So sometimes I'll have stuff in there. If it doesn't sell after, you know, a year or 6 months, I'll look at my comic shop. Hey, they'll give me $3-4 for this issue. That's what I would have sold it for. you know, turn it into something. I was trying to think of what I got recently. I'm looking around. Yeah, I haven't gotten anything recently. I've been giving it to my Cheddar Comics shop, you know. So like this year I sent a big box and I got a 9/8 First Carnage that I sold, and so I was like turning a bunch of rust, a bunch of old rust into like one bar of gold, you know, and then flipping that gold. So
that's awesome.
I got to be thrifty like that, you know.
No, that's good to know for
Yeah.
future. And then I'm sure JP, if he was here and heard that, and I'm going to definitely tell him obviously before the show airs, but like, I think he would definitely think that'd be of great use to him too.
Oh, it's great, you know. And
especially with like him, he likes to do like the antique shopping thing, and so he finds a lot of these books that he buys them because he knows he's got a good price point on them, and then to do something like that is, you know, no friction almost.
No, and their system is cool too, because you'll go in there and let's say it's, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 238, you know, or maybe something they don't want, you know, like some variant cover. They'll tell you we're not buying this.
So they have like a list that's on their website.
Yeah, they have like, there's a little thing, I think it's called How to Sell or something, and it sends you to this other part of their website, and it's like a whole directory, and you just type in your issue, and you know, they'll tell you what they'll give you for the grade you have, and it's great.
How does that process work? Like, do you say like, I think this is a 4.0, and then do you have to send pictures, or?
No, you just like, it's pretty much just, so yeah, if you said it's a 4.0, you know, they would give you, there's like the grade and then the cash or trade value associated with the grade you're saying. So then you send it in, and then they'll go through everything, and then they'll grade it themselves.
Got it. Okay, that's what I was figuring. Okay.
Yeah. So then you know, they'll probably say, well, this is actually a good, so we're not going to give you $2. We'll give you $1.50 or whatever. But you know, like I said, for a buyer, it's great because I have another one. I got the Amazing Spider-Man 316 from them as a trade. You know, because I always wanted that McFarlane cover.
Yeah, it's my favorite Spider-Man McFarlane cover.
Oh, it's great, right? Here, I'll do show and tell for you. So I got you know, this was take it right off the wall. You know, this was my comic shop one. You know,
nice.
They graded it as a 8.5. You know, and then I got it cleaned and pressed by Atlas, and I got a 9.6 on another one.
There you go.
You know, awesome. So it's great as a buyer because they're very strict. I've never had a problem with one single book I've bought from them.
That's great because I always find, and I've said this many times on this show, that like I usually have the opposite effect in the sense that like when I'm buying a raw book from somebody, they're always like, "Oh, I think it's a this," and then they'll have this caveat. You know, but I undergrade my stuff, and then like you get it, and then like let's say you send it in, it's like no, it was like a full grade lower than what you said, right? Like I never have found, but that's great to hear that my comic shop.
No, and I think that's one of my, you know, because of my history with my dad and being like into grading so much. Me as a buyer, I'm just like, I'm such a prickly Pete with grades, you know, that I get real worried about what people. I'm like, you guys, can you send me some pictures? Or
and that's because I've done a number of raw book trades, and I'm always like, this is what I was told by the dealer, but here are all the pictures, and ask for more because I want you to consider it the grade that you think it is. And you know, obviously they're not gonna. I can tell if they're gonna be like, oh, well, that's actually a 1.0. Like, no, it's not. Obviously, I'm not an idiot. Like,
this is falling apart.
Yeah. So that's awesome. No, that's a good pro tip. Good tip for any collector out there.
I gave away my secret sauce. I wasn't going to tell anybody that.
Well, now because our show has so many viewers and subscribers, it's going to have this huge influx to my comic shop.
I'm not going to be able to trade with them anymore.
No, but then they're going to say, "Hey, Chris, we're going to sponsor you, and you're going to be a part of the machine." Like,
that'd be great. I love it.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, besides them, you know, honestly, my favorite is Instagram. As you know, I mean, I felt really. So I started Cheddar Comics last. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead on your questions, but
no, it's fine. We can bounce around.
You know, I started Cheddar Comics last January after my other business failed, and it was just like immediately getting onto Instagram, which I wasn't on as a comic person. You know, like just personal accounts over the years, but being a comic person, like plugged into the community, it was so different. I'm like, what's this? What's a claim? How do I claim anything? You know, what is this? And you just got, I mean, for the most part, you know, it's just such a great community in there. I don't know what it is about Instagram that just finds like the best comic people.
Totally. I mean, I think I said this a couple weeks ago on our show. If I, because as I first started collecting, I obviously didn't know, like, I'm not a big social media guy. But then I decided to just like put it on Instagram and like found this whole community. And if I didn't, in all reality, like, cause I was, when I first started, which, now it's been about 1.5 years since I got back in, I started, you look on eBay, right? That's what everyone kind of goes to. And so I bought all my first books were on eBay. And, I would bet that like, if it was just me, cause my wife's not into it like yours is, none of my friends here are into it. So it was just essentially me going on eBay. Like, I probably would have burned out in 4 to 6 months is my guess. But like, you get on there, you get kind of into the community. That's how I met JP and all these great people. Like, that keeps the fire alive. And like, honestly, that's the more fun part of the hobby than the actual purchasing of books. And then, starting this channel has just doubled down on that effect. Like it books, who I can't obviously afford to have great books coming in every single week and day and things like that. Yeah. And so it's like things like this help keep it fun. And, I didn't get a book this week, but JP got a book this week, or you got a book this week. And we're talking about it. Like, that's fun. Like, that's what I love.
For sure. Live vicariously through your friends,
Yeah. It's funny. So I've also recently, as many people know, I've gotten back into Marvel cards as well, which is about 5-6 months now old. And so there's a whole card community as well. And, a handful of them do both, but a lot of them are just card guys. And a lot of them will start to dabble into comics and things like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, you don't want to buy on eBay, buy it on Instagram. They're like, what do you mean? What? And it's just like, so I've been like trying to like, and vice versa. Like, I would like that card element to be on Instagram, because again, with cards, you essentially gotta have to like do the eBay thing. And it's just not as good of an experience, especially when you get to like, I bought a Submariner 8 from you and I know you and we can have good talk. And like, it's just such a much more enjoyable experience. Plus, like, knowing the person's like, I'd much rather happily support someone like you than random schmo on eBay or you know what I mean?
I feel the same way. And I mean, it feels so cold and I've bought from eBay and I still will, but it's, it's so ice cold.
Yeah.
And it's like you buy on Instagram or wherever, sometimes even on Whatnot, and it's like you get a little note or you get some cards or, you'll get a message like, hey, thank you so much. This was a big help. And it's like, oh, that's a little warmth. That feels nice.
And, and I said this because I recently bought from JP. I decided to collect the original Silver Surfer, which is only 18 issues. It's not anything major.
Great run.
Yeah. Awesome. And, one of the, outside of like the 3 big ones, which is Silver Surfer 1, 3, and 4, one of the bigger ones is 14 with Spider-Man. And JP had it and I bought it off of him and I was like, oh, this is great. Like, it just felt like the money stayed in house, right? Yeah. And it's like, he's going to use it to buy something he wants. And like, that's the kind of sense you get. I feel much better about using this money to people that I know and like, and exactly. It's great.
There's just a little warm, little human touch goes a long way,
Yeah. Okay. So, and I just learned before we got on that you are a full-time dealer now as of 1.5 years ago, you said?
Yeah.
So
since next year.
First off, with that in mind, what's the Cheddar Comics? What's that? Where's that come from?
That's a good question. It's kind of, and there's a few prongs to the name. One is like fun. It's just stupid. It's just supposed to be lighthearted because I had, so my business before this, the Phoenix is Cheddar. Okay. So Cheddar came out of my dead old failed business. That failed because of COVID.
Got it.
So COVID ripped I had no idea what to do. And my daughter was literally just born. She was probably like 2 months old. She was premature, so we were in the NICU for like a month, and then maybe a month later, my wife and I kind of realized the other business wasn't working because the COVID was just like downward scale,
Yeah.
So I had no idea what I was going to do to provide for my new family, and she had suggested, well, why don't you? Because I was selling comics on the side. I had a Etsy shop. for like 5 years. You know, if I bumped into something, I'd put it on the Etsy shop. It wasn't like a serious thing. You know, I'd be lucky if I made like $100 on there a month or something, you know? So anyway, she was like, well, why don't you do the comics, sell comics? I'm like, that's crazy. That's not going to work. That's insane. And then after a couple months, you know, I was like, well, maybe I'll try it. You know, I'd be a lot happier because I was really sad and depressed, you know, before that. So, I was actually on Whatnot. I discovered Whatnot like that December. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. You know, it was when it was cool. And, you know, and it was like, nobody was on there. It was like a room of 5 people and everyone was so nice. And, you know, I was like, well, I need a username. So I just came up with Cheddar Comics, and it was just supposed to be fun. I'm in Wisconsin. So obviously, you know, you got the cheese element, of course. And then kind of like, my big goal is like, oh, it's only going to be like the best stuff, you know, like the cheddar of the
there it is. There it is. Yeah.
You know, so I don't know if I'm there yet, but it's nice to have a nice, you know, pie in the sky.
Now, if someone was to ask you what's your favorite type of cheese, you're not going to say like provolone, are you?
No, and you know what's really funny is that I just had this happen the last couple of years. Like, I'm lactose. I can't even eat cheese. So it's like I can't even enjoy it anymore. So, but before that, I guess, yeah, maybe it was provolone or something, you know?
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
Isn't that ironic? What a joke.
So talk to me about, and this is kind of something I guess I have, because we've had a few dealers on here, something, a question I have. You go from a kind of side hustle Etsy shop, and you spin this up to a full-time gig. Talk to me about that ramp up process. Like, what is happening?
Great question. You know, because I had no idea what to do. And that was like my biggest question for like a few months, where I was like, how am I going to like get from where I am now, which was, you know, I'd go to half price books and I'd buy a book for $1 and sell it for $5. You know, it's like, or, you know, there just wasn't like a big scale, you know, and I didn't know how to do that. So, because of my old business was a drone. And when it ended, was a drone photo and video business. I did like construction sites and real estate and, you know, stuff like that. So I had a drone and I sold it. And then I had like maybe like a couple grand from that sale. And for like a few months, I was just flush with liquid cash to kind of experiment with like buying stuff at high end and low end and trying to flip and learning. You know, I had like a couple months of road to learn. And I just bought a lot of stuff on at that time I was buying a lot on Whatnot. I had a lot more. I would go to comic shops, like, and I'd widen my radius where I drive, because I'm in Madison. So Milwaukee's like 90 minutes and Chicago's like 2 hours. So I'd go to the comic shops and hit those up and kind of learn like that. And then I tried scaling, you know, like that, where it's like, well, now I'm comfortable buying a $20 book, and now I'm comfortable buying a $50 book. Now I can buy a $100 book, you know, without feeling like I'm going to lose everything, you know, and not be able to buy diapers that month, you know?
Yeah.
So it was pretty much it was a learning process for sure, because I mean, I learned everything doing it on the job pretty much. And I lost like a lot, you know, like it's like, oh, this is great. This is $80. I'm like, oh, geez, I sold it for 90, you know, and after fees, I mean, I lost a couple bucks. It could have been worse, but yeah, so that's kind of how.
So then where are you sourcing your inventory now? Are you buying collections? Are you buying books just one-off that you find good deals on that you can then turn?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I wish that collections were just like coming in all the time. And I know that, you know, from a little bit of experience, that comics is very regional, you know, so, and that's something my dad would always tell me, like, the Midwest, you know, you'll find a lot of, you'll find superheroes, of course, but you'll also find a lot of cowboy stuff, or you'll find a lot of cartoons, or, you know, and then on the East and the West Coast, you'll find a lot more superheroes or a lot more Golden Age or whatever. And here in this area, I don't really find a lot of collections. I wish I did. So I have to be kind of looking, you know, right now I'm doing like a lot of auctions, like local auctions.
JP hits those a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of nice because you don't have as many eyeballs. You know, a lot of the conditions aren't great, but that's good. You know, Instagram is good. And then really like where the real cheddar's been lately is with CGC stuff. So getting high grade stuff, getting it pressed and cleaned and getting it graded, you know, has been
got it. So you buy raw, you spruce it up, and then you make a profit on the higher grade sale of the item.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear. So some of the, like, you know, we have had Drew from Como Comic Books, and I've said this before that he's mentioned this, that he's not a full-time dealer. He has a regular job as well, but like I remember him saying he's like in the Midwest where he's down in like the Missouri area.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's like, collections are falling out of the sky. Like there's just so many coming up. It just seems like one of those areas. And then we've had Dave from West Coast Avengers on. I remember kind of asked about it, and he talked about how, like, you know, when he gets up in the morning, you know, he's like, as a comic book person, especially when you don't have a shop, he was like, you know, every part of your day, like you're kind of always working, but like it's not like, you know, a 9 to 5 type of job. It's like really kind of fun, he would say. But he's like, he had this whole like flow of how his day would start. He's like, oh, I go on OfferUp, and then I look on this, and then I look on that, and then, you know, anything that's comic related, I just inquire about, and it just, like, you know, kind of keeps that wheel turning. So it's interesting to hear about, you know, the processes. And then the thing I heard the other day that I thought was quite interesting, and which is why I'm curious to ask the next question: do you have any ambitions to open a brick and mortar, or do you like being just online?
Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
I would think so too, especially considering like the marketplace we have. However, I heard someone recently say, it must have been on another channel or something, they were saying the one benefit to a brick and mortar comic book shop is that every given week, you're just going to have people walk in with collections because they see that shop and like, oh, I got this in my closet. And like someone was saying, like in some areas, like he knows shops that get up to 3 collections a week of just walking in. Whether or not they buy them is, you know, up to them, but like at least walking in their door. And, you know, I have an LCS here that I go to, and he actually is closing down in a couple of days because he's going to retire. And that's kind of what he says. He just sits there and collections just walk in his door.
They walk in. It's the only benefit to really having all the headache of the overhead and the electricity and the rent is that collections will just walk in.
Yeah.
You know, for me, with my history with my dad, I watched my dad's store close twice. Yeah. So he opened his store in the 90s or in the 80s, and it closed in the 90s. And then we moved to the Midwest. He opened up another store, and I watched him close that store too. So, and then I watched a lot of Shark Tank, and I don't know if you watch that show at all, but you know, the inventors and stuff will all have this like obsession with brick and mortar or getting in the stores. And the sharks are always like, oh, it's hell. Don't do it. You know, stay direct to consumer. And, you know, so a little bit of my personal back story plus a little bit of Shark Tank just keeps me away from it, you know. But it is a benefit because I've been tempted. I've had somebody, I've had 2 people in town try to convince me to open up a store, and I'm like, oh, I'll think about it, you know, because the collections thing, or even if it's a few days a week, and I just don't bring myself there, you know, because I'd have to be there.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know.
So everything you're moving, selling, however you want to call it, do you store just at your house then?
Yeah, it's literally like right here off camera. I got like a couple shelves of just like shipping stuff and a couple boxes, and then downstairs in my apartment building, I've got like a little storage unit with like dollar back stock and stuff when I do shows in person. This year I started getting into like some vendoring like in real life, you know.
Yeah.
So I just
That's right. You just did your first show, right?
Yeah, I did like a flea market thing in June, and that was okay. And then I did like a real comic show in Milwaukee last month, which was great. And then I did another flea market thing this past weekend, which was terrible. But I was glad I made any money, I guess. But yeah, so I've been kind of dipping my toe into that. But I'm actually you'll have to put your link down in your profile, because I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel. By the time this comes out, it'll be up and running with my first video on there. So
great. What kind of content are you looking to put on the channel?
Yeah, so like my background is I used to make movies. My wife and I had a little production company. We used to do shorts and stuff, and then obviously that film and video background I kept going for years until about 2 years ago when that other business failed. So I'm just really interested in telling like comic book history, digging into the past and telling stories that haven't been told before, and finding little nooks and crannies of comic history that aren't really being looked at. Can
you give a couple examples of that, maybe, or one example of that?
Yeah, sure. So like the first one I'm doing is like, I'm trying to like cause a ruckus, because I'm actually going to be talking about Gambit.
Okay.
The X-Men 266 versus Annual.
Yeah.
What's what? Where does it land? All that stuff. And then the other stuff that I have on the dockets, like there's just crazy stories that I've read in books where it's like, the mafia built DC Comics.
Oh,
yeah, because it's all in New York. So, but the craziest part about it, or they had mob ties or something, right? But the mob ties ran all the way into the 70s, where there would be this guy at the DC Comics office, and they would be like, "Who's that guy sitting in the in the break room?" And they're like, "Oh, that's Vinny. He's taken care of." And there's these guys that were taken care of that were still in the DC offices in the 70s.
Wow. That's
so it's like, that's crazy to me,
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. I look forward, because that's like, we recently did this episode with Mike from Lunch Money Comics, because we had our guest that had a last minute cancel. And so we're like, Mike jumped on, like, what are we going to do? Because we actually just had talked to Mike for an episode. We're like, oh, let's do this Cards and Comics challenge. And we were like, we took out, because we all grew up on those Marvel cards. We pulled out each card. Like, first appearance of this character is this. Do you have it? And we kind of had, like, it was like a game. It was super fun. But with it, like, we would talk about, said character and like the knowledge of, like, this book. And we would talk about things like Gambit, like X-Men 266 and versus Annual 14 and blah, 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 blah. And it was super fun. So I think that sounds super interesting. And since you brought it up, we got to ask, where do you stand, 266 or 14?
Oh man, so it's like, by this time the episode will be out, but it's such a mess, because when I went into the nitty gritty of it, and I asked, I was at Fan Expo Chicago last month, and Chris Claremont was there, and I've met him before, and he was a sweetheart, and I got a bunch of books signed, so I didn't really have a lot for him to sign, but I wanted to ask him this because I knew that this was going to be my first video. So I was like, Mr. Claremont, like, what's the first appearance of Gambit to you? Dude, he was so bothered by the question. he was like, and he gave me the big, like, they're in the mansion in this issue in 266, and in this issue they're not there. I'm like, okay, he was like, he was very adamant that it was 266, and his big line though to me that resonated, he's like, I just write the books, I don't control when they
come out. Yeah.
So where it's kind of weird, because when I did the research, because I posted on Instagram, what's the first appearance, right? And everyone would be like, the joke comment, which is fine, would be like, well, Hulk 180. It's a Hulk 180 situation. And after researching it, I'm like, it's not a Hulk 180 situation.
It's different.
It's not cameo versus full.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's like the dude is in 10 pages. He
has lines.
He has lines. He's in costume. He's a dress. It's like, it's not a cameo. It's a first appearance, but it's like, it's kind of it's a different thing, because it's not in continuity, because it's technically his third appearance in continuity. And there's even a little note that I found, there's an editor's note in X-Men Annual 14, and it says, see issues 265 to 267. So this is supposed to take place after 267.
Yeah, and I also think one of the big things too, so I'm a firm believer in 266 is the true first appearance. Yeah. Especially because the cover, it literally says, enter the mutant Gambit.
exactly.
What I was gonna get at though is what I find funny is, and you brought up the Hulk 180, Hulk 181, and guys will get really into that debate. It's a fun debate to have for sure.
Definitely.
But what I find kind of funny sometimes is that some people will be really adamant that 180 should be the book that's worth a lot. And when it comes down to it, it's fun to debate whether it's the difference is at the end of the day, we all know one of them's the money book and it's not going to change. For example, like 180 will never be worth as much as 181.
Never.
Right?
Never.
Annual 14 will never be worth as much as 266.
No.
ASM 299 will never be worth as much as ASM 300. Like at the end of the day, we can argue and have nuance and it's fun. But at the end of the day, we all have to acknowledge, like, we know the money book and it's not going to change.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and with Gambit too, it's like, it's kind of weird because it's like, you almost have to come up with like different terms for it because it's kind of like
not a cameo. Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't a cameo full thing. So get that out of there. Cause CGC on the label, I have that book in a CGC and they put on their Gambit cameo.
Yeah, I know. I see that. I don't like that.
Which is insane. It's insane. Yeah. It's like, how is like 10 pages, like whatever. But it's kind of like, do we call annual like first appearance in print and the other one's first continuity? Or
I feel like that's what CGC should put it first appearance by publication date or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
And that's what it
add
is.
3 more words, like no big deal. Like
and it's so funny. But it is weird though, because I like when people try to say this should be the money book, and it's like you can't change that.
The market dictates, and the market has spoken.
We've all decided we don't want that one as much. You know,
I think Mike from Lunch Money also makes another good point in the sense that like oftentimes like annuals also aren't really like a true reflection of what's going on in the story, and they're often like a reprint or just kind of one-off. Like, and so it's like it's hard when you have the 2 issues there to like be like, no, 14 is it's like, no, we all know, like, so
yeah. And I mean, and when you read, 260, because this is a great discussion because I've been inside these books for like the last 2 weeks, and it's like you read 266, Storm meets Gambit for the first time. You can tell, obviously, besides the cover, because it says Enter the Mutant Gambit. I mean, Storm is clearly meeting him for the first time with the audience.
Yeah.
Like, what's your name? What are your powers? What do you do? It's like clearly we're all meeting him for the first time, and it's cool too, because he doesn't have his cards yet. He picks up like a plate, and he picks up like he has like spikes, like little spikes or something he throws, and he like lights up the plate.
The one thing I always want to ask about is what is up with the Speedo he's got in that.
Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of I forgot what the artist who did that one.
It's Andy Kubert.
Yeah, did he do the inside too?
I don't know. He did the cover though, I know.
Has he got the underwear on the here? You know what? I got him right here. Let's see this underwear. Yeah, he does. I never noticed that.
Yeah, the Speedo is definitely on the cover. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's weird.
Because what's funny about it is it's not like Superman where it's like it's a brief kind of situation.
Yeah.
It's like it is a straight like Speedo on him.
Yeah, it's got like thong strings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's not underwear.
Yeah, he's like wearing a jock strap to protect his nuts or something.
It's where I keep my cards.
Yeah. It's where he keeps the money items.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's awesome. I look forward to and yeah, we'll definitely put the link.
That.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Where did that idea spur from?
The channel idea?
Yeah.
It's something I've always wanted to get back into, and I kind of walked away from like being creative and being
I guess with the movie making business.
Yeah, I've always kind of done creative stuff and artistic stuff besides like, my day jobs and stuff. So I made movies for a while and commercials, and I would shoot and direct and edit and write, and then I did some like graphic design work for a while, and then the drone photography business, I got into photography, and so I've always kind of wanted to go back to it, and I feel that I wanted to go somewhere where the stories aren't being told, because I didn't want to add to the, not that I don't like them, I just don't have anything to add to Hot 10 lists or what's valuable, or there's just so much of it. I don't feel like I can add anything, but I feel like I can find stories that haven't been told, and I'm looking forward to reading more and researching more, because I think that there's maybe a bigger audience, and that's something back to cards. There's because the same, I've gone to you because you're my card expert. I ask you like, oh, is this a bunch of crap or what? Because I never was into it until this year, and it's just kind of fun expansion of the hobby. And I got some cards in a collection. It was like this page, this X-Men page,
Oh yeah, yep.
And I got this page and I posted it. There's a Facebook group called X-Men Addicts.
Okay.
And it's just fun. It's just like pure light, pure love. Everyone's just sharing their love for X-Men. I shared this page, and I swear to God, it was like the biggest thing I'd ever done in my career. It was like 10,000 likes. It was shares and comments, and all these stories it was all these wonderful stories of people saying, I remember those cards. I collected them with my brother. Oh my God, I'm going to go look for them right now. And it showed me how much of the fandom of the characters and the mythology aren't in comics. How many people like shared stories where it was like they just had these cards.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on the show, like especially for us 90s kids.
Yeah.
The cards are what did so much in terms of an intro to Marvel, because we weren't around in the 60s and 70s to read these comics, but you could get that synopsis on the back of the Spider-Man card, on the Wolverine card, and you 100%. Got a comprehensive history that you could speak to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, absolutely.
I found that was like a big wake up for me, because I was like, not like snobby, like, oh, they don't read the comics or something. I was just like, wow, there's so many people out there. How many people are out there that, want to share in this love that just aren't in the comics or not in the movies, or, they just forgot that they had those, or, yeah. And it was just like,
there's, one of the things, and I brought him a couple times, but Mike from Lunch Money, one of the things I love about watching his videos is he'll pick up a book, and it could just be a $2 book, but he'll have the knowledge of what happened in the book, why things happen. Or like when we did that comics and cards challenge, like, Sabretooth came up and I had my IF-14, which ironically, I actually didn't know Sabretooth's first appearance was in an Iron Fist comic until I got back into the hobby.
That's
but
cool.
Like Mike talked about, like, when he first came in, he wasn't a mutant. He was just a kind of mercenary that had these claws, and then they kind of retroactively made him a mutant, and obviously Sabretooth became who he was. And that's just cool to know. And like, especially us now, most of us that we are all in this hobby together all have jobs and lives and kids, and I don't have time to read, X-Men 277 anymore.
Yeah.
But like, I can listen to a channel like what you're talking about, or like Mike's, or, that episode that we did while I'm working, while I'm doing this, and like relive that history. And it's awesome. I really enjoy that. And, it's great. It's a great way. So I'm really, that's awesome. I'm really thinking your channel's gonna be awesome.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a great and I have the same thing where I shoot all my pictures on a little desk over here, and I'll put something on my computer, and it's like, oh, I don't want to listen to like politics, or I don't want to listen to this. I'm like, oh, I'll find some video. And there's like a great video that just came up on my recommended page, and it was like how Rob Liefeld, went from like nobody to like a rock star, like on the Jay Leno show. I'm like, whoa, that sounds interesting. And I watched it, and I was like, I didn't know any of this. I mean, I knew that he was like popular and he started Image, but I was like, the nitty gritty of his like poor childhood and him becoming like a huge celebrity in the 90s. I had no idea until somebody made, that video essay on YouTube. So
yeah. And it's kind of funny, as I've gotten back into the hobby, like, I like to be informed. I like to be knowledgeable. And so like, I used to have all these like podcasts on politics and this and that. And like, it's gotten to a point where it's just like, what I've literally loved about the hobby is just kind of let me escape from just the noise.
And that's what I love about it,
Yeah. And so like now I still have subscribed to those podcasts, but like, I honestly don't listen to it much. Like, I've kind of filled my content space with, now I still listen to a lot of sports podcasts because I'm a big sports fan.
Sure.
I love that kind of thing. But like, otherwise it's primarily comic book and Marvel card related content. Cause again, it's just like, it just takes me out of the noise, and just
isn't your life so much nicer and quieter without listening to
Yeah, I don't have to be like, oh my God, did you see what blah, blah, blah did? And blah, and it's just like, I get it. Like, and I'm not trying to deny that bad things happen and big things happen, but it's just like, I just kind of came to this point where it's like, what can I, and obviously we can do things, we can vote and things like that, obviously, which I still do. But at the end of the day, like
the day to day, you can't do much.
Exactly. You know? And at the day to day is like, I just kind of took this perspective of like, if I was to look back on all that I, watched on the news or whatever in this last month, did it make my own personal life better? Was I happier for knowing these things? And exactly, since I've like made that switch, I'm way.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm gonna not listen to that. I was like, I don't think I need to know this every day. I feel like you feel like you do, or you go, oh, I gotta be informed. I'm like, I don't need to be informed.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely now embracing the kind of like, and again, I'm not trying to say I want to be ignorant and I want, I want to be aware, absolutely. But like
the broad strokes.
Exactly. And actually one of my friends put this, he's kind of in the same vein. He's like, I've come to realize like when these events happen, he's like, you know what I want to read about them 1.5 to 2 years later, because now all the like biases and things like that, now we just have reports on the fact of what happened. And I was like, that's so true, because now there's no actual story. We get this side of the story, we get that side of the story. And again, this is obviously a big tangent, but like, my life is better without.
It's nice. It's colorful. It's bright. It's fun. It's lighthearted. Makes you happy. It's like, you're the maker of your own universe. You might as well surround it with whatever you want.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to your show. Is it going to be called the Cheddar Comics channel, or are you?
Yeah, it'll just be Cheddar Comics, stories about comics. So I'm looking forward to getting into that every week, or just like finding, like I'm going to do some like single issue spotlights, like just kind of like weirdo books. Like, do you know about the one of the ones I have lined up is oh God, I forgot what issue it is. It's like New Guardians. Hold on, I'm not going to be long. It's New Guardians 2. Do you know this book, Rohan?
I don't.
Okay, so in this book, there is I'm not kidding you, there's a cocaine-powered supervillain. And he literally says in here, like,
is that Marvel, DC?
This is a DC, yeah. So this is a DC book from 88. New Guardians #2, cocaine powered. What more 80s can you get than a cocaine powered supervillain? And like, I cannot believe that they put this, to print. Are you ready? Can I show it to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at him taking that huge sniff of coke.
Holy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Now, if we were to look on Key Collector, would it annotate that?
I think it does.
Let's take a look real quick. So what's the name of the series title?
It's New Guardians.
All right,
or The New Guardians, and it's issue 2.
The New Guardians.
Yeah, and he says in here too that he sniffs all this coke, and then he says that he's a god.
Issue 2, first appearance of Snowflame, a cocaine. What a name, Snowflame, for a cocaine-powered supervillain. Quote: "Cocaine is my god, and I am the human instrument of its will." Wow.
Cocaine is my god. Let's just remember. There it is. Look at that sniff.
Yeah, that is hilarious. Oh yeah, you should totally do these kinds of things.
So that's like a whole. I got to know. I have to know everything.
100%. Yeah, I love it. I love
standards and practices, and many DC editors.
Yeah,
to sell to children.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Just like another like nugget of knowledge I think about that's just kind of fun to learn. Right? Is I've talked to you about this recently. Like I'm kind of getting back into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, sweet.
And
great.
Obviously, the Grail book there is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1.
Yeah.
And with #1, I think there's 6 printings now, and then there's variant covers and blah blah blah.
Sure.
But really, when you think about it, like there's the first, the second, and the third print. To someone that doesn't have the knowledge, they all look identical, right? Value-wise, though, we're talking at magnitudes of difference.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just thought it was really cool to like one day research, like, how do you tell a first from a second from a third? right? Third obviously has just that tiny bit more of blood splatter on the second T, right? That's what you go off to make sure you know it's a third print. Or the second and first print, the covers are identical. How do you know? Obviously, the inside cover says first printing or second printing, and then the first printing has an ad on the back page, is it, of Gobbledygook #1. And so, like, that's how you tell it. That was just a great little, like, 20-minute trip down the rabbit hole. Like, I love that kind of thing.
I didn't know any of that, honestly. If I ever bumped into one, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh, did you know the blood spatter on the T for the third print?
No, I just figured that you open it up and it would say what printing it is. So you got to kind of like decode each issue.
Yeah. So like if you look at where in the word turtles, the second T has just like this tiny bit more blood spattered on it than the T's of the, which really makes me think, how did they have that change when the first, second, and third print? Like, why do they even change like that? I don't know, but that is the telltale sign. Yeah. And then that gobbledygook ad, because I think, like, it's pretty janky how it's written first and second print. Like, I think it's easily forged potentially. I'm not sure on that. But the telltale big one is that gobbledygook ad on, I think it's the inside of the back cover.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I would love to have any of them, really. You know,
yeah.
Do you have any of them, or what?
No, I don't have one. And I there's a couple big Marvel books I want to get in by the end of 2024. But then after that, again, people may think it's crazy, but I do like to long-term plan my collecting goals.
Yeah.
And so after it's like 4 books, my main goal is going to be, and it won't be a high grade one. It honestly, like if I could find like a 4.0, 5.0, again, that's a book that I just want to copy.
Like, yeah. Low grade better than no grade.
Yeah. So for sure.
That'd be killer. I'd love that.
Yeah. So now with that channel, are you going to do like claim sales at all?
I don't know. You know, it's like, that's a good question. I got to write that down. I got to figure that out.
Or have you done claim sales on Instagram?
Yeah, I do on Instagram. I do, like, because my inventory, you know, I have the Etsy shop. So it's like, I kind of do one, like maybe like once a month. And it's like, if I had more inventory and I had more collections coming in, man, I'd be doing them all the time. But it's lately I've been having a lot of I don't know if you've had this in this year, a lot of like pandemic pricing versus like, here, let me get my shot, current pricing, you know, and they want this and you're like, it's worth this, so I'm going to give you like this.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a problem with the collections like in the last couple months. I'm just like, your price is just way too high, man.
And here's the thing too. I just made I just turned a bunch of books for a big book that I have coming in.
Oh, cool.
And you know, a lot of these books that I moved, I bought at the height. And
I know.
We all need to just accept that if you bought a book in 2020, 21, 22,
yep,
take 40% off or something.
Totally.
Not to mention like they're still going down. Like they're still,
I know, we haven't hit bottom.
Like, you can think that it's here and it's still like the offers you're going to get are still, and that's things like I took losses on most of it, but then I justify by like, look, I had these books for the year and a half. I enjoyed my time with them. That's worth the cost I lost. And I still gain enough value or in terms of money back to buy it's a Daredevil one.
Oh, cool. Killer.
Yeah. And so it's like, to me,
awesome.
like, I'm not worried about, because again, this is different in your shoes where this is your livelihood. Like, this is not my livelihood. So it's like,
yeah, but I can relate in my PC.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, for example, like I had a New Mutants 98 and it was a 9.4, you know, at the time at the height, it was 500. And I ended up having to move it. I had it listed at like 425 and then 400. And then I got an offer for 385. And I was like, yeah, I took it. And it's like that 115 I lost. You know what? I had the book for a year and a half. Like, that's the cost of the enjoyment. Fine. So be it. And like,
could be a lot worse.
Exactly. And that put me well on my way to being able to then make the move for the DD1. So that's totally fine with me. And again, I get it. And it sucks that you bought it for X and you have to sell it for less. Like, but that's just how the market goes, right? Like it's just like a stock, right? Like if a stock you bought it at its height and now you want to turn, it's like you don't get to just say like, hey, but I bought it. Like, and it's unfortunate, and it's just a reality. I think we all have to accept. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting because you talk about selling at your first con, and that's the thing I find very frustrating about cons. Is like, these people that go to and now in where I'm at, I don't have these like local smaller cons, which I hear are awesome. We just have kind of these big touring one, like Emerald City Comic Con and Summer Con. And like I go and like I've told people like the books on the wall, it's like insulting to like anyone that has any knowledge of the market. And I'm like, who is buying these books? And so it's just like, but it's exactly what you're saying. Like this dealer obviously bought some collection or something that was in the pandemic and paid a lot for it because comics are booming, and now they got to make their money back. And it's just like, I'm sorry, like it's just not going to happen at that price. And it just, yeah.
And because how close are you close to like Seattle, or where are you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm close to Seattle. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean here too, like when like in Madison, there's kind of a triangle from like here to Milwaukee and Chicago. And there's like a lot of little shows. I go to like this show in a bowling alley, rec center.
That's what I want to go to. Yeah.
Yeah. Those ones are cool because those guys like have so little into the table.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, whatever, you know, what's your offer? I'm like, I don't know, $40. Like the great.
That's what I want. There's one I am going to in November that's much smaller, so I'm hoping it has more of that kind of environment.
Those are way better because then you go to like I was at Fan Expo, which is out in outside Chicago. Like those prices are nuts.
Exactly. I told people this last time. Summer Con in which is not in Seattle, but a town south of Seattle. But it's a big comic book convention. And I went there and they had a Fantastic Four 49, which is one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
Right? First full Galactus, first cover of Silver Surfer and Galactus. It's an awesome book. And it's, in my opinion, it's my favorite Jack Kirby cover. I love Jack Kirby.
Killer cover.
But they had a low grade copy and they were selling it for $5,000. And I was like, guys, I could go on Instagram right now and find that book for $550. Like,
oh my God.
What are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? Like, yeah,
we're not going to look up anything. We're just going to take a guess.
Yeah, like, this is an important book. Therefore, $5,000. Like, it just makes no sense. It drives me crazy.
I wonder what that is too, because there's like I see that a lot on. I do a lot of buying on Facebook Marketplace, and it's like I don't know what these people are thinking. I posted it on my Instagram. It was like a Spider-Man 2099 #1, and this person was asking. It was raw. And you could see, you know, like that book, that foil book, you can always see those spine stresses really easy.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see that it had been like well read and well handled. And this person was like, it's never been read. It's perfect. And I want $300. I'm like,
I don't even think that book at a slabbed 9.8 is $300.
Yeah, I think a 9.8. I went and looked that day and I was like, what the? I went and looked and a 9.8 sold for like $175. So I was like, I don't know where you got three. You know, I was like, are you expecting like rubes or people who don't know what they're doing to be like, wow, what a great deal. Spider-Man for $300. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Yeah, it's quite, but what I actually wanted to ask though. So you sell on both eBay and Etsy. Which would you say you move more inventory on?
It's kind of, you know, it's pretty much month over month. It's about 50-50 because I sell a lot of the smaller stuff on Etsy, and then the bigger stuff I kind of do better with most of the time on eBay.
Got it. Okay. I would have honestly, I would have never thought to look on Etsy for comic books.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of because I started off like when I started the little Etsy shop, it was like we'd go thrifting or we'd go to Goodwill and you know, bump into some stuff and just put it on there. So it's kind of accidental that it grew into something because I think I'm at like 5,000, 6,000 orders after all these years or something. But yeah, there's some on there and it's cool. And then other ones are just like back to these crazy prices where I don't know what they're thinking, or there's a lot of this like gimmick on Etsy where the seller will put it for, you know, let's say, you know, it's on sale at 70% off, but it's like it's $200 and the 70% off. So now it's only, you know, whatever, 60 or, and it's like it's not even worth 60, let alone 200. But it's kind of nice because I really like it on there because I get like really nice customers. I get a lot of returning customers. I get people who are buying for their husbands or girlfriends and stuff, and a lot of like gift buying and stuff. So it's most of the time it's real 99.9% of the time it's really nice, lovely people on there, which is cool,
wow.
which is nice for me.
Yeah, I'll have to surf the Etsy site to
Yeah.
check it out. Do you have like a shtick, like, if people want, like, for example, we interviewed Rage Theo, and like
Cool.
his kind of deal is X-Men and X-Men related books. Like his claim sales are all, mutant filled for the most part. I mean, obviously he has lots of things, but for the most part, if you want X-Men books, he's someone you could go to.
Go to him.
He's got it all. Dave from West Coast Avengers, like he does a lot of varied, but he says, like, I mostly stick and have better audience with raw books versus graded books. Like, do you have like kind of a lane that you think you stay in, or anything and everything, or what's your kind of any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of extensions of my interests. So, I keep a lot of, I mean, if I can get them, I keep a lot of Spider-Man, I keep a lot of X-Men. If I can get silver, I'll put silver and bronze in there. I mostly have keys, so it's kind of just like a little extension of myself. It's not a lot of run filler kind of stuff, because I would prefer to buy like one book and flip it and make a good profit on that one.
I imagine when you become a online dealer versus a brick and mortar, you kind of like the online environment. It seems kind of hard to be a run filler seller, because like
totally
run fillers are like you're at the store and you're kind of looking through the boxes and you're kind of pulling out. That's why you get run fillers. And
well, yeah, and two, like, at least on Etsy, it's like I gotta pay. I mean, I do lots. Like sometimes I'll sell a short box.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I imagine if you have run filler, you got to do like a lot.
Yeah, I'll do like a short box of Incredible Hulk, or a short box of Uncanny X-Men, and that stuff always sells really good because I if I get a good deal on it, I always try to pass it on. So like I just had like a short box of Uncanny X-Men. It was like 90 issues. I had put it for like $180. It sold in a week.
Nice.
But yeah, I wish I was like Dave. Shout out to Dave at West Coast Avengers because he's the man. I keep a lot of McFarlane stuff. So yeah, it's just an extension of myself pretty much.
Yeah. And I think that's good. Like the phrase that goes, you buy what you like. I think when you sell what you like, it almost isn't like I'm buying from it. Like, again, like you can speak to it, you can understand it, you can understand the value of it, who your buyers are. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And but you know what sucks about that though? It's like being a drug dealer getting high on your own supply, because I want to keep everything, I'm like, I don't think I have this book. I'm like, I gotta pay.
I think like in a different like moment, I would think I would love the life of the comic dealer, but like I think I would have that problem too much.
Too hard.
Like
every day
is like, oh, this collection came in and it had a Hulk 181 and all these Hulk rays. Like, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna keep the 181, and then it's it's like,
I keep the 181.
That's where you're gonna make the money there. Like that.
Yeah, I'll get my money back and I'll get to keep that. I mean, sometimes I do that and I'll upgrade my I'll upgrade my PC, and then I'll sell the lower grade one.
Yeah, that I think I've seen a lot of people doing that. That seems to be like a good way to go.
That's a good like halfway, because I've had a couple things this year. I'm like, man, I'd love to have that, but I'm like, I can't keep it outright, or I have to I'll take stuff out of my PC to cover it, and I'm like, but now I've done that so much that my PC's like down to the bone of like what I'm willing to get rid of,
Yeah, I totally hear that, because I kind of went through that. What would you say is like kind of your top PC books? Just curious now.
Can I show? I was hoping you were going to ask me because I could show it to you.
So, yeah, we love the show and tell.
Yeah, I'll start with one of my grails that I want you have. So when you're ready to get rid of your Hulk 181, you let me know. I love that book.
Yeah, it's a book too where people are like, oh, I don't need to own it because there's so many of them. It's like, I don't care. I love Wolverine.
Doesn't matter.
It's a book that, like, if you're a big comic collector, it's just like one of those must-have keys. And It's a book that I feel like I'm not getting rid of it unless what I'm getting rid of it involves a higher grade version of that book coming back.
Well, and there was, I don't know if you follow, I'll show these my favorites, but I want to bring up the short box. I think it was short box. They asked like people their top 5 grails. Did you see that post by chance?
I don't think I did.
Oh, it's so interesting because you'd think like, oh, you're gonna see Action 1 on there. Action 1 is not in the top 5.
Yeah,
it's not the most wanted. Maybe that's because it's $1 million or something. But number 1 was Amazing Fantasy 15. Number 2, which I was surprised by, was Hulk 181.
Yeah, not surprised. I mean, it's like we see that with going back to cards, like Spider-Man and Wolverine are the bee's knees. Like
you can't go wrong.
Like I don't. The thing is like it's with cards, we become like these character collectors. It's like I don't collect those 2 characters, and I'm glad I don't, because like, man, talk about an expensive market, talk about a competitive market.
Yeah.
Like those are, Venom's right up there too. Like I collect Silver Surfer. He's a big character, but he's not even near the level of Spider-Man. Like let's just say if you have a $10 Silver Surfer card, that's very likely like a $30 to $50 Spider-Man card. Like,
well, it's nice to have those kind of other characters that you can like easily get,
Yeah.
Because
kind of hard still. Like in one ways, it'd be nice to be like, oh, I'm a Nightcrawler collector. Or,
yeah, or you know what? Here's for JP. I'm a Lobo collector.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Oh, so you have no one else competing with you. You get every book you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's for JP. I like Lobo, but I mean, come on.
I want JP to know that was an unprompted Lobo moment. I did not bring that up. That was completely on Chris.
All me. I just wanted him, when he watches this later, to be like, wait, I wish I was there and I could have told him how awesome Lobo is, But yeah, so
let's do the show and tell.
Yeah, so my 2 favorite books that I have in my PC are the ones that I fought like the hardest to get. So the X-Men's my favorite, so they're both X-Men books. That's why I'm dressed up for you. And the one that it was before my kid was born, so I had a little bit more money, but I sold a bunch of my PC to get it because my wife was like, you should really get that book because you've always wanted it, you've always talked about it. You got to get it. Burning Size X-Men #1.
Yes.
And even though it's really high, I always think that this is an undervalued book still.
Dude, look at the prices for it now. It blows my mind.
I know
how, like, we'll say affordable.
Yeah.
But like how affordable it is relative to other keys. Like you could get a 9.0 giant size X-Men 1. Again, this is no small dollar amount, but
no,
$4,500. Like
I think that for how many, if Storm was in her own book, and it was her own first appearance, that would be a crazy book. But then to have Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, and is it second Wolverine?
Second full Wolverine is how I
call it. Wolverine, and then obviously new team, and it's like it's got it all, man. And I mean, even for like a mid grade for like $1,000 or something, it's like I think only to the moon can this go. If once I don't know what, you can't really talk about Marvel movies anymore because you used to say like, oh, when they put Storm, now you can't say that because it could be trash,
Totally.
So that book I fought really hard to get, and I was really glad I got that. And then my favorite book in my PC, which is I will be buried with this book, or my daughter will get it. I'm not going to be buried with it, but she'll get it, and hopefully by the time we're 90, you'll get something nice. I got my X-Men #4.
Very nice.
You see anything on it?
Is it? Oh, nice. Signed by Stan Lee. Look at that.
I got this signed by Stan Lee in 2017. It was about a year. I think it was a year before he passed away. And he came to a Wizard World, oddly, here in Madison. And my wife and I were both like, Stan Lee's coming here? That's crazy. So I talked to my dad, and he was like, well, if you're seeing Stan Lee, you got to get a good book signed. So I had like smaller stuff where I had, whatever. So I was like, I went through and I researched what I could, because I was like, well, I can't get X-Men 1. I can't get those ones. And I kind of did a bunch of research, and this, 9/20, it's about 6 years ago, 9/23/17. So I researched, and at the time, this book was like, I bought this book for $250 6 years ago. You know, so it's like a long time ago and not a long time ago. And I got it on eBay, and it was on there, and I sent the guy a message, and I was like, I'm meeting Stan Lee. If you could give me a deal on it, I appreciate it. He's like, only because you're meeting Stan Lee, I'm going to give you this at that price. I'm like, awesome. I'm really doing it too, you know? So, and I wanted the book because, like I told you before, Magneto is my favorite.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, second Magneto, first Brotherhood. So I was like, well, that's great. And then the bonus part is obviously Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So yeah, I had him get that signed, and I should have gotten it CGC'd that day, but I was broke because this signature with the book and the signature and the price you get it. I mean, the signature that day was like $110, I think.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I had like one of the, and not to brag, I had one of the best things there because people were bringing him such crap to sign. This whole line was like, this guy had a Thor like plastic plate. And like someone had a fleece blanket. I'm like, you're paying $100 for him to sign a plate and a blanket? That's crazy. Yeah. Or like people were getting like just random filler 90s Spider-Man issues signed by him.
Yeah, you know? I think it's funny. I've talked with a few people that when people, and you see this the most with Stan Lee, like,
yeah,
people will get books that Stan Lee had literally no, like, for example, like a big one that you see often, like ASM 300. Like,
yeah, I know.
Stan Lee's kind of like he's more of like a figurehead than anything.
Yeah.
So to me, like, to get ASM 300 signed by Stan Lee, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like,
it's weird.
And then like even since then, like there is a Spider-Gwen. It's obviously a modern book. I think maybe it's Spider-Gwen 1, but it's the variant cover where it's the homage to ASM 300. You know what I'm talking about at all?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
I've seen multiple copies of that signed by Stan Lee, and I'm like, why did you choose to get that signed? Like,
and at that time it was like it cost him like 80, 90, $100, you know?
Yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing that was sad about this was like and to be honest, like I'm so glad I have this book, and it's my favorite X-Men book. It's the earliest one I have. I don't have anything. I just got it 12 this year.
Oh, nice. Juggernaut.
Yeah, and I have a 14. But he was like, I mean, he was near the end when I saw him, you know. And I didn't know, and what was sad was later is like, and then you find out that there was elder abuse, you know, and that people were like taking advantage of him. Did you hear all that stuff back in the day?
No, I have no idea. What are you talking about?
There was a guy like always next to him, and he would like, there's actually a great book about Stan Lee's biography, like kind of a undisneyfied version of Stan Lee's life, like a comic biography. And the very first page is someone telling him to sign his name, like STAN.
Oh, wow.
You know, it was like that bad. There was actually a story back in the day where it was when I was working at the comic shop, and they were putting on a brand new comic, and it was like, and it has the blood of Stan Lee in the ink. Did you hear about? There's like a Black Panther issue. I don't remember when, from maybe 2010 or something, and it has his blood in the ink that went through the printer, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to collect that," right?
It's creepy.
Yeah. Years later, I think a few years after he died, someone had forged like a nurse's certificate or a nurse's document saying that they had access to Stan Lee's blood, and it was forged so that they could like make money off of him. You know? And it was like, it was horrible. And then like I was thinking about all the people that have that book, you know, you find out that it was like blood stolen from Stan Lee. It was just horrible at the end of his life, how it taken advantage of he was, you know.
This is another episode for you for Cheddar.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I mean, isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you do hear those stories about like, and again, like nothing but love and respect for Stan Lee, but like you hear those stories about like at the end that he would still be kind of just like, there'd be someone there essentially like, you know, I don't know, but like people say like, oh, essentially someone was there holding his hand, guiding him to sign. It's just like, oh man, that is
terrible.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm happy I met him. you know, because I thanked him and I was like, thank you for, you know, X-Men. He didn't say anything. He was like, you know, he was just signing away.
Yeah.
But you know, this is my favorite book in my PC, not to be a big downer, you know. Got the certificate, you know, that day. Nice. That's what I paid for. So those are my favorites. All the X-Men ones I love.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Do you have ambitions for X-Men 1?
Oh, of course. Oh my God. You know what? I don't know how much time you have, but I was second in line for an X-Men 1 on Facebook this year.
What do you mean second in line on Facebook?
So there was a lady on Facebook Marketplace about 45 minutes away from me, and she posted for sale an X-Men #1 from 1963. And I was like, no way, it's the real thing. I open it up. It's the real thing. She wants $1,500.
Oh,
it's her husband's book, and there was like some writing on it. I mean, it was probably like a pour or like a 1 or something, but
$1,500 still.
Yeah, I was like, let me get in, it's still available. So, and I couldn't sleep that night because I was like, oh my God, I could be like this. I'll sell anything. I'll get rid of anything to get that book. And then she messaged me like in the morning, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry that there was one guy in front of you and he's coming today. And I was like,
oh man.
No. That was like the closest I ever got. And I was like, I tried to worm ton my way in. I'm like, well, you don't want to sell to him. You want to sell to a real collector. You know, you want to sell to someone who will love your husband's books and stuff. And she was like, sorry, he's coming today. If he doesn't, I'll hit you up. But
oh man. You know, well, there'll be another.
Exactly. I gotta wait around for the second time.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Chris, this has been a blast. Thanks for
thank you.
On. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a real honor to be on the show.
Yeah. So again, just tell everybody Instagram, YouTube, what are the handles like? So we're working, and we'll put it all in the notes and everything.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So my by the time the video comes out, I'll have the YouTube channel launched, and that's at Cheddar Comics. And then my Instagram page is at Cheddar_Comics, and hit me up on there to, you know, continue the party, continue the fun.
And then the Etsy shop, how do they find you on? How do you find someone on Etsy?
Yeah, so the easiest way is I bought the URL, so you can just go to cheddarcomics.com and that'll send you right to the Etsy shop.
Oh, got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Thank you.
Definitely have you on again in the future.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I've got 100 other stories for you.
Yeah, and I look forward to watching your show and everything that comes with it. So
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, best of luck to you. Everyone, as always, please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. All that good stuff. But otherwise, we are out. Peace out.
Bye.